Let us explore why our survival instincts actually fight peace now in 2025. Together, let us relaxingly recite. If the first noble truth was the pervasive nature of suffering, or more accurately, stress, then the second noble truth is its cause or actual exacerbation. Evolution has gifted us with a dopamine-oriented system in our underbrain that rewards for procreation with fleeting feelings of pleasure. It also rewards for finding warmth when it's cold, shade when it's hot, water when we're thirsty, food when we're hungry, and rest when we're weary. Why? For all these things keep us alive long enough to pass on our genetic traits. And that is of primary concern to our genes, the puppet master behind the scenes. Forgive the rhyme. The religious folk sometimes describe these primary drives. Sorry, let's try this again. The religious folks sometimes describe the primary drives of this dopamine-oriented reward system as pushing, pulling, or clinging. Perhaps we're just crass enough to prefer the 5 F's. When exposed to anything, being, or phenomena, deep within our viscera, we seem to ask, should I fuck this, feed on this, fight this, flee from this, faint before this, or fawn over this? Yes, this mechanism could occasionally aid in our survival. But a life defined only by survival is rather shallow and unsatisfying. You see, we also have an oxytocin-oriented reward system in the basement of our brain that rewards cooperation with feelings of fulfillment. When this system is our default mechanism, life could be pretty sweet. But sometimes we get stuck in our dopamine-oriented system and life becomes, as Thomas Hobbes insisted, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In his third noble truth, the Buddha offers us liberation. But liberation from what? From the tyranny of our dopamine-oriented survival impulses, freedom from its job of tyrant, and instead its relegation to the role of mere tool. Harmless, benign, and at times even useful. This is why the Buddha taught mindfulness and meditation. Having completed the opening lesson, it's time to shift gears. It is Yoda Monday evening. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. For more than 30, let's try this again. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyper focus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I could become your nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Good evening, Shivi. Welcome to the latest iteration of very easy ordered meditation. Excuse me. All right. Together as a team, let us relaxingly recite. Whatever comes, may all beings notice, relax, and flow. Whatever stays, may all beings notice, relax, and flow. Whatever goes, may all beings notice, relax, and flow. Welcome to the first of 4 mindful crease counting meditations. Upon the tip of our left little finger, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right little finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce in the bladder region of our lower abdomen. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically notice or plug into our sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, to help us notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. The most efficient way to practice this mindfulness is to silently and mentally recite the verb noticing during each inhalation. And conversely, the most efficient way to practice meditation is to silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing during each exhalation. Now, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist recitation, Buddhist meditation, or Buddhist philosophy, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. Let's practice. Alrighty, let's see here. It appears we have a question. Do you think that those who practice mindfulness and meditation get better sleep? I've been curious about this as a friend who doesn't practice said they struggle with sleeping and constant thoughts. This is an excellent question. There are many, many variables when it comes to mindfulness and meditation. Using the practice that I presented this morning and that I am presenting this evening makes sleeping much easier. But it's important to remember that that mindfulness and meditation, while splendid, are not a panacea. They are not a cure-all. They are wonderful tools for helping us cope with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. They are wonderful tools to help us to reconcile the disparate functions of our brains, to reconcile our cerebral cortex with our autonomic nervous system. They are wonderful tools to help us balance out our dopamine system and our oxytocin system. But they're not necessarily a cure-all for everything. So yes, tonight's style of meditation, this morning's style of meditation, can help with sleep. But people still have to practice really good sleep hygiene. What does that mean? During the day, people need fresh air, sunshine, exercise, the healthy foods that we thrive on. As a species, it's a whole food vegan diet is going to optimize our health, and it acts as a protection against all-cause mortality. This has been backed up by the World Health Organization. So it's not just some crazy Californian talking to you. We need to have healthy relationships, both intimate as well as platonic. If we are going through something emotionally, we need to avail ourselves of a professional to at least talk it through with. For our friends may be lovely, but not every friend is a qualified therapist. And if one is going through unresolved trauma, one needs to do that. Now, can meditation help? Yes, meditation, mindfulness and meditation can be a fabulous adjunct, but it's not a cure-all. So let me give you an example. The astute observers of politics have noticed that in America there is a slow coup occurring, where members of the executive branch are trying to grab power from the legislative branch and the judicial branch. For those of us in my country who are not sexist and are not racist and are not homophobe and who are not transphobe, and who actually love humanity and they love the planet, this is deeply disturbing. If someone finds themselves in an agitated state, sitting might feel like an impossibility. If they feel safe, what they may wish to do is brisk walking meditation, using the same verbiage that we're using for sitting meditation, just applying it to brisk walking meditation. Walking briskly around one's block when one is agitated is great because one doesn't have to one doesn't have to cross the street. If one is a female, if one is a woman and feels unsafe to do brisk walking meditation at night, one might acquire a treadmill. And not to go running on, but to do brisk walking meditation on. And it can help us to process what we're going through. It has been observed that just a basic action of brisk walking with your arms swinging and your head turning around, looking what's going on, and your feet swinging back and forth. It sort of massages our hippocampus and helps us to process unresolved issues. It, according to Summa Trauma, is any past event that has been not failed to be processed by the hippocampus. When that happens, the past event is experienced as a present event, which is confusing and exhausting and agitating for the brain. Those things could make it more difficult to go to sleep. So here's what I basically do, because as someone with ADHD, I'm no stranger to insomnia. So what I do is I use the practice that we're using tonight. It's a good practice. Before bed, before I go to sleep, I get my bed all set up. I then sit in the living room on the couch and read a book. My right eye is closed. I'm reading through my left eye. When I start nodding off, I put the book down, I pad down the hall, go to the bedroom and lie down. Once I'm lying down, I start counting backwards from 100. I do not do this to meditate. I do this to exhaust my brain. It often helps, but each of those components only work because they're part of a larger whole. If I was just doing one of those things by themselves, it would not be as effective. Now, I'm a big old weirdo. That works for me. You might have special needs. And so I hope that helps. And I thank you for your very good question. Well, let's see what's going on here. That doesn't look good. Let's tap this button. Let's go up a few pages. And make sure that fits okay. It appears to. Good. Let's go back down. See if this page fits a little better. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is switch texts. Let's relaxingly recite an excerpt from Vast Expanse of the Diamond-like Mind, the foundational text of Dzogchen, composed approximately 1400 years ago by Prahe Vajra, translated from the Tibetan by Chogyal Namkhai Norbu, translated from the Italian by Adriano Clemente, adapted and amplified by yours truly. So I think we're going to page 11. Oh, that's 10. Whoops. Page 11. Here we go. Hey, Joe. Welcome aboard. Together, let's relaxingly recite the following passage 4 times. The great elements or the Bhagavan, boss-like dynamism such as solid yet void, that exist by nature in all things. However misunderstood it may initially be, liberation originates from oneself and not elsewhere. Allow me to explain. Together. The great elements or the Bhagavan, boss-like dynamism, such as solid yet void, that exist by nature in all things. So, a charming Iron Age way of looking at our body. This is a collection of 4 or 5 elements, such as the wind, the earth, the water, the fire, and the space elements. It would be a mistake to take that literally and rigidly and to look at it as anything other than a cultural artifact. So the author who lived after the Iron Age infers that there was a great South Indian Buddhist philosopher known as Nagarjuna. And in a time when people were neglecting mindfulness and only focusing on meditation, or they were abandoning noticing and only practicing relaxing, he taught that both were important. To paraphrase the late former head of Tibet's Nyingma order, just as a one-winged bird cannot take to the sky, likewise we need both awareness and release to take to the skies of nirvana. So good old Nagarjuna taught that both awareness and release were important. And he called them the 2 truths, the conventional truth that we perceive as we breathe in, and the ultimate truth that we viscerally experience as we relax into our exhalation. And so there are charming ways of exploring this. During the last, I think, was it this morning or last night? Yes, during last night we explored the 2 truths in terms of 4 bases of mindfulness. Right now we can explore the 2 truths in terms of the 5 elements. Bearing in mind the 5 elements are just metaphors. So for instance, our experience could be dynamic, yet non-graspable. Solid, yet non-graspable. Fluid, yet non-graspable. Warm, yet non-graspable. Spacious, yet non-graspable. The point of that is this. There are no distractions, for distraction is antithetical to concentration, and concentration is an indulgence of our rigidity and controlling tendencies. However, every time we inhale, our sympathetic nervous system is actually wired to help us notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, which I'm sure you can see is the opposite of being rigid and controlling and concentrated. So, and our ability to notice and release all manner of things is not something we endure. It's not something that's kind of okay, it won't really harm us. No, it's like a boss. It's the dynamo that turns the wheels and pulleys of our metaphoric enlightenment machine. Let's continue. Together, however misunderstood it may initially be, liberation originates from oneself and not elsewhere. What is meant by liberation? What is the liberation the Buddha offers us? Buddha does not offer us liberation from the presence of unpleasant experiences. He offers us liberation from their tyranny. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it's sunny. We can notice and release. Sometimes we're loved, sometimes we're hated. Either way, we can notice and release. Sometimes we feel pleasure, sometimes we feel pain, sometimes physically, sometimes emotionally. Either way, we can notice and release. the enlightenment the Buddha offers us is the mastery of these techniques, getting so good at noticing and releasing that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Getting so good at noticing and releasing that we spontaneously experience impermanence, love, and going with the flow. Now, it's very, very possible to be overwhelmed. It's very easy, especially in our culture, the way we were raised, to be perfectionistic. To think that we have to do everything perfect all the time. But here's the key. The great people, the great luminaries, the great men and women of art and science made a wealth of mistakes. And they learned from them. We don't have to be experts. We don't have to be masters of minutia. We don't have to be tyrants of trivia. We can just notice and relax in harmony with our inhalation and exhalation. And even though there's great probability that, especially at first, we will sometimes get confused, the body is already designed for liberation. It's already evolved for liberation. Our body has evolved to be happy, healthy, and well balanced so that we can become the people, the healthy, happy people that our dogs already think we are, that our cat thinks we are when it nuzzles up to us and purrs. Sometimes some people can help us on the path. That can be lovely, but not mandatory. Liberation originates from one's own central nervous system, from one's own body, not for some oddly dressed teacher, regardless of their age or gender or culture, regardless of whether they are handsome or hideous, wealthy or poor, popular or shunned, charismatic or boorish. The ultimate teacher is our own practice of mindfulness and meditation. The purpose of the outer teacher is only to show us the inner teacher. That and nothing more. Together, let's recite, relaxingly recite. The great elements are the Bhagavan, boss-like dynamism, such as solid yet void, that exist by nature in all things. However misunderstood it may initially be, liberation originates from oneself and not elsewhere. The great elements are the Bhagavan, boss-like dynamism, such as solid yet void, that exist by nature in all things. However misunderstood it may be, liberation originates from oneself and not elsewhere. Welcome to the second of 4 mindful crease counting meditations. If I sound like an FM DJ, it's not because I'm trying to be insincere or trying to be Frederick Fancy Pants. It's because I have a lot of brain damage and it takes a lot of work for me to enunciate or not speak too fast. It's called the uncanny valley. And it's something that people like me, people with autism and people with ADHD, sometimes come across as. And so if it's a little bit clunky, if you notice sometimes I communicate in a weird clunky way, that's not you, that's me. Upon the tip of our left ring finger, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so, we gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the navel region of our mid-abdomen. The most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently and mentally recite the verb noticing during each inhalation. For we are wired to notice all manner of things. We are wired to notice scents, flavors, sensations, sounds, and sights, as well as emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. The most efficient way to practice meditation is to silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing during each exhalation. Together, let us relaxingly recite this passage 4 times. The wisdom of greatness is difficult to find. It is realized through wisdom and method. Though it could be said to depend on something else, real bliss originates from oneself. The wisdom of greatness is difficult to find. It is realized through wisdom and method. It is not realized through contemplation and concentration. It is not realized by indulging our controlling tendencies or our rigid tendencies. It is not realized through the superstition of blind faith or pseudo-intellectual mental gymnastics. How do we realize the wisdom of greatness, of great wisdom? Simple. By cooperating with our sympathetic nervous system and noticing as we breathe in, even noticing this, spontaneously noticing the uncomfortable stuff. And by cooperating with our parasympathetic nervous system and relaxing as we breathe out, or I should say, acquiescing to the natural impulse to relax as we breathe out. Now I can do a quick edit. Once again, the person who translated this into English was not a native English speaker, so that's where I come in. Kind of polish things up here and there. Let's continue. Though it could be said to depend on something else, real bliss originates from oneself. Yes, we just explored this a similar idea in the past passage. This is what we call a reoccurring theme. We are all hedonists. We evolved to be hedonists. Hedonism kept us alive. Hedonism helps us seek shade when it's hot, helps us seek warmth when it's cool, helps us seek water when we're thirsty, helps us seek food when we're hungry, helps us to sleep when we're tired, helps us to procreate when the time is right. These things are wonderful. They're necessary for our survival. We are wired to be hedonistic. So just like just like an interview with a vampire, when the little girl vampire fed on Brad Pitt and said, "I want more." We're all like that. We're all ravenous for more pleasure. There are illicit sources of pleasure that can really, really complicate our life and our health. There are G-rated sources of pleasure. And then there is pleasure from cooperating with our own autonomic nervous system in a manner that we call mindfulness and meditation. Together. Great wisdom is difficult to find, but it is realized through wisdom and method. I see the question. I'll answer it momentarily. Let's see here. Though it could be said to depend on something else, real bliss originates from oneself. Almost done. Here we go. Great wisdom can seem difficult to find. It is realized through wisdom and method. Though it could be said to depend on something else, real bliss originates from oneself. Now, quick like a bunny, I'm going to tap button A. Whoopsie. I'm going to tap button 8 and hope. Oh, Jay's here and answer a question. Hey, Jay, what do you say? So Jay reports, rough day. May you liberate me from the tyranny of hating, craving, clinging, and confusion by relying on the Buddha's instructions, example, and students. Thanks. Well, you got it. Or as they say in Minnesota, yeah, sure, you betcha. I'm here for you, baby. Whatever you need, I'm here for you for. It takes a strong man to recognize when he's had, to recognize the ancient truth that was repeated in the Big Lebowski. Sometimes you get the bar, other times the bar gets you. And the bar can be the day, and sometimes the day can kick our ass and take our lunch money. I'm sorry you had a shitty day. I hope you have a very lovely evening. I'm going to tap button 9. And now I'm going to, whoopsie, here we go. Upon the tip of our left index finger, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the heart region of our chest. All right, in the most concise way to practice mindfulness is to silently and mentally recite the 3-syllable verb noticing as we inhale. The most efficient way to practice meditation is to silently and mentally recite the 3-syllable verb relaxing during our exhalation. We could correlate this with sitting impeccably, legs comfortably crossed, hands in our lap, creating a vertical traction between our tuchus and the back of our head, letting our scapula open, letting our jaw relax so that although our lips touch, our teeth do not, letting the tip of the tongue touch the roof of the mouth, letting a gentle smile radiate from the corners of our mouth through the apples of our cheeks and then perch upon the crow's feet of our eyes. And to do all this while inhaling and then relaxing everything during our exhalation. Thank you, Shivi. All right, this is our final recitation of the evening, so let's make the most of it together. We're going to perform this relaxing recitation 4 times. The great miracle is not difficult. All qualities and capacities immediately arise from oneself through subtle understanding of the authentic condition. The great miracle is not difficult. All qualities and capacities immediately arise from oneself. The great miracle is simply mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, whose dynamo is our practice of mindfulness and meditation. All the qualities and capacities we need to be of service to others do not come from, despite what the Disney studios tell us, they do not come from a fairy godmother or an oddly dressed fellow such as myself to place a palm upon the crown of your head and mumble incomprehensibly in a different language. The capacities and qualities we need to be of service to others are accessed by cooperating with the inner genius of the team of our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, which correlate with our inhalation and our exhalation. Whatever circumstances we notice internally, in our neighborhood, in our nation, on our continent, on our planet, by relaxing and releasing the loving, wise creativity can guide us if we let it. The great miracle is together. The great miracle is not difficult. All qualities and capacities immediately arise from oneself through subtle understanding of the authentic condition. The great miracle is not difficult. All qualities and capacities immediately arise from oneself through subtle understanding of the authentic condition. Subtle understanding is not to be confused with blind faith or pseudo-intellectual mental gymnastics. The subtle understanding comes from being vulnerable as we breathe in and relaxing as we breathe out. It's just that simple. Final repetition. The great miracle is not difficult. All qualities and capacities immediately arise from oneself through subtle understanding of the authentic condition. And this adventure with the Big Lebowski is postponed until tomorrow morning's live stream. Because I'm evil that way. Whoops. Upon the tip of our left index finger, we could rest the great knuckle of our right index finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so, we could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the crown region of our head. During our inhalation, we can silently and mentally recite noticing. During our exhalation, we can silently and mentally recite relaxing. you have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 13 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's morning meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.